What would you do if your child was fighting for her life and the world just kept walking by? She wasn't asking for much, just $5 for a bracelet she made with trembling hands, sitting on a cracked sidewalk with no hair on her head and too much courage for a 12-year-old. Most people didn't even look at her. Some glanced, some scoffed. Some saw the color of her skin and walked a little faster. But one man stopped. Not just anyone, Clint Eastwood. And what he did next didn't just change her life. It made the world slow down. It made people see her. Really see her. So stay with me. Because this story might just change the way you see people too. Gracie Bell was 12 years old and already knew what it felt like to be invisible. Every Saturday, Gracie stood outside a CVS in downtown Atlanta with a beat-up folding table covered in handmade bracelets. She'd written the sign herself in purple marker. $5 each, help me fight cancer. Her fingers, small and bruised, moved slow but steady as she tied bright threads into patterns. Her head was bald, not because she wanted it that way, but because of the chemo. People passed her all morning. Some gave her a quick glance. Others avoided looking altogether. A few tossed coins onto her table like she was a vending machine. Most didn't say a word. No one stopped to ask her name or why a little girl was out there alone, selling bracelets instead of being home or in school. And almost nobody actually bought one. Gracie didn't expect kindness anymore. She'd learned the hard way that being poor, sick, and black meant the world wasn't exactly in a rush to notice you. Attention was something you had to earn, and even then, it wasn't guaranteed. The bracelets weren't perfect, but they meant something. One of them, blue, yellow, and green, was based on what she saw in the hospital: the walls, the IV lines, the soft lights above her bed. Every bracelet she sold got her a little closer to her next treatment. One more pill, one more ride to the clinic, one more shot at staying alive. That morning, by 10 a.m., the sun was already beating down hard. Sweat ran down her neck, and her hoodie stuck to her arms. Her bones hurt not from the heat, but from the meds pumping through her body for months now. She hadn't eaten much since the night before. Half a bag of chips, a slice of bread. That's all there was in the fridge. Her mom was at the diner working a double shift. Gracie told her she'd be fine, but the truth was, she was wiped out. A group of teenagers walked by laughing. One pointed and said something that stung, but she kept her head down. Later, a woman in a navy blue suit dropped a quarter onto the table without even making eye contact. Gracie stared at the coin for a long time, her jaw clenched. She didn't want pity, she just wanted someone to really see her, so she kept going, one thread at a time. Her fingers moved slow, but she didn't stop. Her face stayed calm, even though inside she felt like crumbling. If anyone had taken a moment to really look, they would have seen the truth. Gracie wasn't just making bracelets. She was holding herself together. She didn't need sympathy. She was fighting with everything she had, using string, color, and the last bit of hope she hadn't given up on yet. Most people still didn't notice. But then, just before noon, something shifted. A man, older than most, stopped a few feet away. He wasn't scrolling his phone. He wasn't rushing to be somewhere. He just stood there, hands in the pockets of a worn leather jacket, a cowboy hat low over his face. Gracie didn't see him at first. Her head was down, tying another knot. But there was something about his stillness that made her look up. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But the way he stood there quiet and steady made her pause. He wasn't staring at her sign. He wasn't looking at her bald head. He was staring at the bracelets, like they mattered. And right then, without her even knowing it, her entire world began to shift. He'd been standing there longer than anyone else. Gracie noticed his boots first old, scuffed and dusty like they'd been through 100 roads. They weren't like the clean dress shoes or sneakers everyone else wore. Then she saw the jacket. Heavy brown leather, cracked in places, like it had a story of its own. A wide cowboy hat sat low over his face, hiding most of it in shadow. But even from behind her table, she could tell he wasn't just passing through. Most people barely slowed down. They looked at her like she was furniture, or worse, like she wasn't there at all. But this man didn't move. He didn't pretend to scroll through his phone. He didn't glance and turn away. He just stood there, still, present. It threw her off. Gracie kept her eyes down, pretending to straighten the bracelets. Her hands trembled just a little, but she kept them busy. The heat was rising, and her hoodie clung to her back. She felt the ache in her arms, the kind of ache that didn't come from lifting or moving, but from chemo, from surviving. And still, he didn't say a word. She finally glanced up. He was looking at the bracelets like they were paintings in a gallery, like they mattered, not out of pity, out of interest. She wasn't used to that. He stepped forward slowly and reached out. His hand, weathered and tanned, picked up one of the simpler ones. Red and black. Not the fanciest design. It was one of her first, a little lopsided, but he turned it between his fingers like it was made of gold. No one ever did that. Most people barely looked. Some tried to give her advice. Others offered coins and walked away. But this man, he studied it. Quiet. Focused. Like the bracelet was telling him something. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a wallet, and slid a folded $20 bill onto the edge of the table. He didn't ask the price. Didn't say a word. Just left it there. Gracie blinked, confused. She wasn't sure what to say. Before she could open her mouth, he gave a small nod and began to turn away. And that's when she saw his face. The sun caught him just right. The shadows lifted. Her heart skipped. She knew that face, the strong jawline, the pale blue eyes, the way he squinted, even when he wasn't in the sun. The kind of man who never needed to say much to be heard. Clint Eastwood. Her dad used to watch his movies all the time. Old westerns, cops who didn't play by the rules, tough guys with hearts they didn't show. She remembered falling asleep to the sound of spurs and dusty wind. And now, somehow, he was standing in front of her. She didn't say anything. Couldn't. Her throat tightened. Not because he was famous, but because he saw her. Really saw her. Not as a sick kid, not as a charity case, but as a person. He gave her one more nod, like he understood everything without needing to ask, and then, just like that, he walked off into the crowd. But the $20 bill stayed on the table, and so did the feeling that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't invisible. When Gracie's mom showed up at lunch, she looked tired. Her apron was still on, and her name tag hung crooked from her collar. There were dark circles under her eyes and a spot of syrup on her sleeve. She brought a sandwich wrapped in wax paper and a bottle of water. Gracie didn't say much. She just handed her the $20 bill and told her who gave it to her. At first, her mom thought she was joking. She even chuckled like it was just a kid's wild imagination. But when Gracie stayed quiet and serious, she looked around the street like maybe he was still there. Her fingers tightened around the sandwich. She didn't say wow or oh my God. She just sat beside her daughter on the curb and shook her head slowly. Her expression said it all. They shared the sandwich quietly. Gracie's mom took off her shoes, stretched her aching feet, and watched her daughter organize the remaining bracelets. Her face softened a little. "You okay out here?" she asked. Gracie nodded, but her shoulders sagged more than she wanted to admit. That afternoon, the street was the same passers-by, the same hot concrete. But Gracie felt different. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the way Clint looked at her work. Maybe it was how he didn't say anything, but somehow said everything. Maybe it was just the fact that someone, anyone, had stopped and really seen her. Whatever it was, it stayed with her. She kept making bracelets. Her hands still hurt, and the heat was worse, but her mind felt lighter. For once, it wasn't just surviving, it was creating. Then around 3 o'clock, something small but strange happened. A woman, probably in her late 20s, walked past the table, then doubled back. She had dark hair pulled into a loose bun and a bag slung over one shoulder. She wasn't dressed like someone shopping, more like someone looking for something. "Are you Gracie?" she asked. Gracie blinked. Her mom looked up from her phone. The woman smiled and pulled out a press badge. I write for a small blog, community stories mostly. Somebody sent me a message about you, about a girl selling bracelets for cancer treatment, and Clint Eastwood. Gracie froze. Her mom stood up fast. The woman raised her hands in a gentle gesture. I'm not here to make money off your story. I'd just like to take a few photos, ask a couple questions, if that's okay? Gracie didn't know what to say. She looked at her mom, who gave a small nod. So they did it. A quick interview, a few shots of the bracelet table, a photo of Gracie threading a bracelet, another of her holding the one Clint had bought. What's your story? The woman asked. Gracie didn't go into every detail, but she told the truth. About the hospital visits, about the bills, about trying not to be a burden, about how making bracelets made her feel like she still had some control. The woman wrote it all down without interrupting. When she left, she promised to post the article that evening. Gracie didn't expect much. People said things all the time, but the next day, something felt different the moment she stepped back onto that sidewalk. And this time, she wasn't the only one who noticed her. The next morning, Gracie didn't expect anything to be different. She packed up the same tray of bracelets, wore the same hoodie and skirt, and sat down on the same sidewalk outside CVS. The sky was overcast and the air felt heavy, like it was holding something back. Her legs ached, and she hadn't slept much. Her mom had hugged her tighter than usual before leaving for the diner. She set up her sign, adjusted the corners, and waited. It didn't take long. Before 10 a.m., a woman stopped. She didn't say anything, just looked at the bracelets for a long time. Then she bought 2. No questions, no small talk. Just handed Gracie a 20 and smiled. That never happened before. Then came a couple, young, maybe college kids. They pointed at the sign, whispered to each other, then picked a green and blue one and paid full price. They asked if Gracie made them herself. She nodded, and the girl said, "They're beautiful," before walking away. By lunchtime, she'd sold more bracelets than she usually sold in a whole week. Gracie sat there blinking at the stack of bills in her pouch, confused but cautiously hopeful. She looked around, half expecting Clint Eastwood to be lurking somewhere. He wasn't, but something else was. A shift. People were noticing. Later that afternoon, her mom arrived carrying lunch, just like before. Gracie didn't even have to say anything. Her mom saw the empty spaces on the table, the folded bills in her hand, and the look on her face. "What happened?" she asked. Gracie shrugged, but she couldn't hide the spark in her eyes. "Maybe the article?" Her mom pulled out her phone, searched, and found it. There it was, front and center. The girl on the corner, cancer, courage, and a cowboy who changed everything. It had been shared hundreds of times already. Comments poured in, people asking where to find her, others sharing their own stories, some just writing 2 words. "Thank you." Gracie read them in silence, her throat tight. She hadn't expected anyone to care this much. By 3 p.m., the sidewalk wasn't quiet anymore. A small group of strangers had gathered, some holding phones, others holding cash. One woman said she'd driven an hour just to buy a bracelet. A man in scrubs came on his lunch break and bought 5. A teenage girl shyly asked if she could take a picture with Gracie. People weren't just buying bracelets, they were talking to her, listening, asking questions, telling her she was strong, that she mattered, that her story made them cry. Her hands shook from the attention, but she kept smiling. She kept selling. She kept breathing through the wave of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The reporter showed up again too, this time with a tiny film crew. They took more photos, asked a few follow-ups, then stood back and watched as the crowd grew. It wasn't chaos, it was kindness. Unfamiliar, overwhelming, but real. And Gracie? She didn't know what was coming next. She still didn't know if the money would be enough. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. The city that used to walk past her like she wasn't even there had finally slowed down, and this time it stopped. 1 month later, Gracie walked into the hospital with her mother beside her. It was the same building, the same hallway, the same elevator ride with the soft ding and smell of antiseptic. But this time something was different. There was no panic in her mother's eyes, no quiet fear in Gracie's chest. The bills were paid. Every treatment, every scan, every round of chemo, covered, not by luck, not by the system, but by people. People who saw her, people who cared, people who stopped. She rang the bell with a small, steady hand. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. Her mom clapped. A nurse wiped her eye. Gracie just smiled. She was still tired, still healing, but she had a future now. At home, the bracelet table stayed folded in the corner of her room. The same faded hoodie hung on the back of her chair. The green bracelet she never sold still circled her wrist. And then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Cream-colored envelope. Her name written in strong, slanted handwriting. She opened it on the porch, the sunlight brushing her shoulders. Inside was a single piece of paper. Gracie, what you made with string and silence said more than words ever could. You reminded the world what it means to see someone. You reminded me. Keep creating. Keep living. Keep standing tall. You were never invisible. Clint. Gracie held the letter against her chest and closed her eyes. She never saw him again. He didn't call, didn't show up with cameras, didn't ask for credit. He had done what he came to do, show her that she mattered. And he walked away, just like in the movies. Gracie's story kept spreading. A gallery in New York offered to showcase her work. Orders came in from across the country. Kids sent her drawings. Adults sent prayers. Cancer survivors sent bracelets they had made during their own battles. But none of that changed her. She was still the girl who sat on the sidewalk with thread in her hands and fire in her heart. And she never stopped making bracelets, not because she needed to, but because now people were listening. If this story moved you, even just a little, hit that like button. Leave a comment if someone in your life ever made you feel seen, and if you believe in stories that restore your faith in humanity. Subscribe. We've got more just like this. Because sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truth.